Unreleased games have a special place in the gaming community. Most people love the idea of what could have been. Now that's actually one of the reasons why we make these videos in the channel. Others love the idea of video game preservation and truly just want to give back to the community by finding as many rare, odd, and unreleased or canceled video games in order to dump them and make them readily available to others by means of reproduction cards or simply just dumping them on a website. Then you have the opposite end of the spectrum and have individuals who want what others can't and simply enjoy keeping prototypes hostage, so to speak, in order to drive values up higher, especially now with video game collecting being at an all-time high. Everyone has their own reason for collecting, but I say this because the game we'll be discussing today could have been brought to the public much sooner than it did. And so in today's video, we'll be discussing Kenju.
Evil Pixel.
Kenju is a fighting game developed by Dream Factory for the Sammy arcades. Dream Factory is responsible for the fighting games Guys and Tobble for the Sony PlayStation. Now Sammy and Atomiswave have been covered in this channel before, behind quite a few unreleased games. I'll leave a link in the description below if anyone's interested. Now Kenju saw a few trial locations around the US, but never made it to general arcade release for unknown reasons. The interesting thing to note here is that fans actually got a glimpse of Kenju back in 2016. And this goes back to when I mentioned people not necessarily wanting to preserve games, but rather drive up the value and interest of a prototype. You see, in 2016, a collector by the name of Showtime released a quick video on his Tumblr that showed a glimpse of this unreleased fighting game called Kenju. Now a separate video also showed up at the time on YouTube by a user named Excel99. Now it is unclear if both of these users are the same person, but his intentions were made a bit clear when he mentioned in the comments of his videos that he has no intentions of dumping it anytime soon from the date of that upload recording. The video showed the character demo and introduction displayed when idle at the main menu. Now this would be the first time we would get a good look at what Kenju looked like, given that there weren't many testing locations when the game was in development. Now aside from testing, Kenju did receive publicity in Japanese video game magazine Arcadia. Now unfortunately, I can't read Japanese, so I'm not quite sure what the magazine article actually states. Now from this article and the small amount of footage we received from the collector's videos, we had no other way to perceive how the game played, with the exception of the small amount of people who actually remembered playing the game during the testing locations. Now that is until January of 2021, when a user from the Dreamcast talk forums by the name of Megavolt85 dumped the ROM for others to play. Now at first look, everyone pretty much has the same thoughts, and that is, Kenju looks eerily similar to Capcom's Rival Schools fighting games. However, that's where all the similarities end. I think the main reason that drives people to this initial thought is the fact that both games utilize the same character design. For example, Kenju's character Eiji looks strikingly similar to Rival Schools' Batsu. Whether or not that's a coincidence is debatable. And I also think it's pretty cool how Kenju utilizes the uncommon cel-shaded graphics. Now if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know how I feel about cel-shaded graphics from back in the days. And I think it's pretty awesome and not used to its full potential, but I digress. Now Kenju is very unique, but struggles to find its own identity, if that makes any sense. I'll get a little more into that later. Now the character select screen reminds me of Street Fighter 3's Third Strike, again borrowing from a Capcom game. Probably just a coincidence, but it hit me immediately after seeing it. Now as far as characters, Kenju boasts 12 characters, each with their own unique designs and moves. The characters are really what make this game unique, from a huge red beast guy to a Mexican temple guardian who resembles T-Hawk, and even an archaeologist cowboy. And then of course you have your typical Japanese student and martial art master character who've become canon in most fighting games these days. The character designs are very interesting to say the least. Now the combo system implemented in Kenju is not bad and feels pretty good, especially for a 3D fighter. Kenju's special combo style is called Kenju Kakuset, which is similar to the custom chain combo mode from the Street Fighter Alpha series, where you're able to combo normals that you usually wouldn't be able to during a standard gameplay. The game also allows you to perform aerial combos similar to that of the Marvel vs. Capcom series, which is called Air Drive in this game. So the game did have a decent variety to it, enough to keep the gameplay fun, interesting to look at, and rewarding, especially if you're an intricate player who just likes to show off with fancy combos. Now when I say 3D fighters, please remember that I mean 2D 3D fighters, not fully 3D fighters like Tekken. If you remember back in the day when games such as Street Fighter EX came out, the first ever Street Fighter with 3D polygonal graphics, the game just felt clunky and the combo system just didn't feel right. Now Kenju kind of eliminates all that. The movement is fluid and the combos just go together. Now when I said that Kenju failed to find its own identity, I meant that this game didn't really bring any originality, as in, a lot of the things in Kenju have already been done before. As mentioned previously, aerial combos, string combos, supers, it's all been done. Now that's not to take away from Kenju's playability, as it is still a fun game. Now I stated previously, we don't exactly know why Kenju was never publicly released, but there are several speculations and rumors roaming around. The more possible being that the game simply didn't do well during the location testing, meaning that it didn't garner enough interest, and back in the early 2000s, that's what drove these fighting games. The early to mid 2000s were a dark time for the fighting games. Just ask any avid member of the FGC, the fighting game community. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and CVS 2, which was released in February of 2000 and August of 2001 respectively, were at the time the last games that really drew hype in the fighting game community. But after the games died down, no other fighting games really drew that same type of attention and energy. Now Street Fighter IV arguably saved the FGC during these dark times with its release 8 years later in July of 2008. But anything before that just didn't catch enough attention. Fighting games during that time aren't what they are now, where the FGC has grown and even branched off to other categories of fighting games. Now I know what many people are going to say, what about games like Smash Bros. Melee? While Melee does continue to be one of the most entered games in tournaments, back when it came out, the following just wasn't as popular as it is today. And it wasn't until a few years ago that people actually started to categorize Smash as an actual fighting game and headline it in major tournaments. And look at all the other fighting games that came out during that time that didn't get enough attention, such as Tekken 5, DOA 4, Virtua Fighter 5, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, which is one of the most unique and fun fighting games I've ever played, and would have done amazingly well had it been released just a little bit later, but unfortunately suffered from the same fate that all these other games suffered from. They simply were released during a time where fighting games just weren't popular. And this includes Kenju. Again, as a member of the FGC, that's just my opinion and perspective. And everything aside, I would have loved to have played this game at the time, with unique games such as Bloody Roar and Power Stone released around the same time. I think Kenju would have been awesome. Now one last interesting fact is that Tokyo's famous Mikado Arcade commemorated its 10th anniversary by putting up an original Kenju arcade on a Blast City cabinet for all of their customers to play. Now it's unknown to me if the cabinet is still up, but I did find this picture online as proof posted by a user. So if you're in Tokyo and are feeling curious, stop by Mikado Arcade and let me know if it's still up. Now once again, the good news here is that if you're curious about the game, it was actually dumped last year by Dreamcast Talk forum member Megavolt85 and can be played by anyone via ROM files. I'll leave a link in the description below. So go play if you're interested, and let me know what you guys think of Kenju or any other 2000 fighters that went unappreciated in the comments below. But unfortunately, that is what we know of Kenju. Thank you guys for watching. Check out some of our other videos if you like. And don't forget to follow us on social media, and make sure to follow us on Twitch to find out when we're streaming live. Or join our Discord to give us any suggestions for any future videos. And I'll catch you all next time.